Greetings from Yellowstone's northeast entrance, and welcome on another one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. Today we're doing the section of road between the northeast entrance and Tower Junction, also known as Tower-Roosevelt. In order to see where we are, take a look at the following of our sites: yellowstonetours.net/map. That's yellowstonetours.net/map, and I'll drop in a copy of the relevant portion of the map over here. You'll see that the northeast entrance of Yellowstone is right up at the top right of the map. There are 5 entrances to Yellowstone National Park. The northeast entrance, which I've just left. You've got the west entrance, which is the busiest of the 5 entrances, and that's where one of our offices is, at the small town of West Yellowstone. You've got the south entrance, which comes up from Jackson and Grand Teton National Park. You've got the east entrance, and then you've got the north entrance, which is where the park headquarters are. This stretch of road is outside the main thermal areas, which are mainly to be found in Yellowstone's lower loop. You'll notice from the park map that we are currently on Yellowstone's, well, we're not really on the upper loop, but this road is going to be leading us to Yellowstone's upper loop. There's a number of picnic spots and trailheads, and most of all, really gorgeous scenery. That was the Butte Creek that we've just gone past, and we will come across it several times as we make our way towards the Tower-Roosevelt area. Behind us are the small towns of Cooke City and Silvergate, which are just outside Yellowstone's northeast entrance. This road over here, the road that we're on, is really the only long road in the park that stays open year-round. Most of Yellowstone's roads are closed in the winter months. I say most because the northeast entrance of Yellowstone, the north entrance of Yellowstone, which leads down to the park's headquarters, that road stays open on a year-round basis. But the reason that this road has to stay open is that the communities of Cooke City and Silvergate can't get out in the winter months. There is so much snow here that the road that leads on the other side of Cooke City is closed in the winters as a result of the snow, and that road is called the Beartooth Highway. And the Beartooth Highway would normally be the road that people who live in Cooke City or Silvergate would take to get services during the spring, summer and fall. But in the winter, if they need to do any shopping or go see a doctor or get a car repaired or whatever it is, they'd have to travel along this road, meet up with the Grand Loop Road, head up towards Mammoth Hot Springs, and then leave the park at the small town of Gardner, which is where the north entrance is. I've mentioned before that this road is not going to have much in the way of thermal features, but I also mentioned that the scenery is really stunning. So there's not going to be that much for me to talk about on certain parts of this trip. There we see the Butte Creek again. But when something of interest crops up, I will start speaking again. In the meanwhile, just relax and enjoy these stunning views. By the way, even though the views look great this way, if you really want to see views that are really awesome, you want to do this trip the other way. We're traveling from east to west. If you go from west to east, in other words to towards the northeast entrance, you will see these towering mountains coming into view, towering over the forests and the rivers and these lush meadows that we're going to be coming across shortly. That I mentioned to you at yellowstonetours.net/map, you'll notice that we're heading towards the Lamar Valley. And the Lamar Valley is, in my opinion, Yellowstone's prime location for seeing wildlife. And I will tell you a lot more about that as we approach the Lamar Valley. There again is Butte Creek. these cars parked on the sides of the road. Generally, that's going to be a trailhead where you can park and go out hiking. This is Pebble Creek. And you can see the trail at the back there. Now we can see the valley starting to open up in front of us, can't we? And we see a sign over there, two of them in fact, the buffalo sign and caution wildlife on roadway. When I came through this way on the way to the northeast entrance so I could start shooting this video, there were hundreds if not thousands of buffalo at the other end, at the west end of the valley. And that was probably a little over an hour ago, so I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of them left. Pretty soon we're going to come to the point where Soda, Butte Creek and the Lamar River meet up. The Lamar River is actually a tributary of the Yellowstone River. All of the Lamar River falls within Yellowstone. It's about 40 miles long. That's about 64 kilometers long. And it was given its name by a geologist, Arnold Haig, who was here in the Yellowstone area on a geological survey in 1885. I'll come back to that. Coming up over there, that is actually Soda Butte itself. And Soda Butte was created by a now defunct hot spring that was in this area over 100 years ago. It's a deposit of, or it's a large formation of deposits of travertine calcium carbonate. And I'll just slow down so we can take a look at it. You'll notice the white color is not unlike the center that I've mentioned several times that we get in the southern part of Yellowstone. Travertine tends to be produced to a greater extent up here. Those of you who've seen any of the virtual Yellowstone tours involving Mammoth Hot Springs will know that I've told you that Mammoth is the most dynamic part of Yellowstone from a geological perspective. The travertine that gets brought up from underground is coming up at the rate of approximately 1 to 2 inches a week, with the result that the terraces that are being formed by the travertine are continually growing, they're continually moving. And as the travertine comes up and the terraces grow, so they start moving into new areas, and the old areas where the terraces are become dead, literally. And you have areas where there are dead terraces and where the terraces are still growing. And the result of these growing terraces is that the Park Service, every couple of years, if not more often, and we're back with at the Lamar River, so the point where Butte Creek and the Lamar River met is a little behind us now, and this is really the beauty of the Lamar River ahead of us. So the Park Service up at Mammoth Hot Springs has to continually reroute and move the boardwalks that go through the terraces. This over here is a popular place for people to go horseback riding. You can see some trailers from outfitters over there. So just to finish off that story, the boardwalks continually have to be moved. So when you go to Mammoth Hot Springs from year to year, you don't know if you're going to be able to walk in the same areas. This little outcrop coming up here on our right, in the winters I so often see bighorn sheep here, and I will try and drop some pictures of them in here. I don't know why I never see them in the summers. They possibly migrate elsewhere in the park. Bighorn sheep are to be found in what's known as Yellowstone's northern range, the northern part of Yellowstone, which is more mountainous. I don't suppose you saw that buffalo lying down there. Bighorn sheep are to be found in Yellowstone's northern range. We'll see them, if you're lucky, in parts of the park that are really difficult to get to, really very inhospitable, because that's where they like to go to get away from predators. I'm just looking up here to see if there's any bighorn sheep to be seen. Nope. And I started all that by telling you about Soda Butte itself, which, unlike in the southern portion of the park, consists of a lot of travertine as well as the calcium carbonate, and not the sinter that you find down south. I think I also started telling you that the Lamar Valley was given its name by the geologist Arnold Haig, who was here in a geological survey in the mid-1880s. And he named it after, if memory serves me correctly, the Secretary of the Interior. And please don't ask me to pronounce his first three names or even remember them. But his last name was Lamar, and hence the name over here, Lamar Valley. Stop for a moment to let this car get ahead of me. And now that that car has gone ahead of us, I am continuing through the Lamar Valley. You can see just how beautiful it is. in that little ditch between us and the mountain. That's where the Lamar River itself is. The headwaters of the Lamar River are to be found in the Absaroka mountain range, which is on the eastern edge of Yellowstone, and it flows, as I mentioned before, through the park, being joined along the way by several other smaller rivers, the best known of which are Cooke Creek, which we're going to be coming across, and of course Butte Creek. Gosh, there's a lot of guys out fishing today, and now we can start to see all the buffalo coming into view. There's a big old boy right next to the road over here, and then off in the distance is where you can start to see the herd of them, and we'll get a lot closer to those. Shut my window, and there's a whole lot more. I hope you can see them off in the distance. I'll try and zoom in a little bit. There's several things that this part of the park are famous for, and obviously we see the incredible beauty, obviously wildlife in general. There's some great fishing to be found in this part of the park. In fact, Cooke Creek, which I've mentioned before, is regarded as having possibly the best fly fishing anywhere in the world in the spring. But the Lamar Valley is probably most popular for being the place where people come to see wolves. The best time to come would be at dawn and at dusk. That's when you've got your best chances of seeing wolves. Now, wolves were in Yellowstone at the inception of the park. This coming up on our right is the Lamar Valley Ranger Station. It's also where Forever Yellowstone, which is a fundraising organization, has its cabins. I mentioned that wolves were to be found in Yellowstone when the park was founded back in 1872. But in those days, wolves were regarded basically as being vermin, and they were exterminated. And it was only in late 1994, and then again in 1995, and once again in 1996, that wildlife scientists went up to Canada, captured wolves, and then reintroduced them into the Yellowstone area. They were introduced into Yellowstone National Park itself, and they were also introduced into central Idaho. When the wolves were brought back here, there was a lot of controversy. In fact, there still is, and I will tell you a little bit more about that shortly. But when they were brought back in, they were held in pens lands which were guarded by law enforcement rangers, Yellowstone law enforcement officers, and then they were eventually released back into Yellowstone. And the way things have evolved here, there are 2 packs that can be found in the Lamar Valley, and people come particularly in the spring and then again in the fall and stay in either Cooke City, which we've just left, or Gardner up at the north entrance, and then come down to the Lamar Valley at sunrise or at sunset. And you can see the buffalo off in the distance over there. Come here at sunrise or sunset, which are the best time to find wolves. We can see the Lamar River in the background going through the Lamar Valley. The concern with the reintroduction of wolves is that wolves tend to feed on ungulates, and elk, which are still to be found in abundance in the Yellowstone area, are an ungulate. The concern amongst politicians and ranchers and farmers and hunters in the states of Wyoming and we have a buffalo crossing the road, so let me pause for a moment. The concern amongst several groups was that the wolves would decimate the elk population. The thinking on the other side was that the wolves would help control the elk population, because if you look at the ecosystem as a whole, the way that elk were behaving was affecting other species in the park as well. So the thinking was that if wolves were reintroduced into the Yellowstone ecosystem, and I'm going to pull over for a moment again to let this car get ahead of us. Continuing again, so if we consider the greater ecological picture, let me ask you this. How did the reintroduction of wolves into the Yellowstone ecosystem affect the fish in Yellowstone's rivers? And I'll give you a moment to think about that one. There are times when you need to consider a larger picture, and I'll leave it to you to decide if this is one of these times. There was no question, and there is no question, and we're leaving the Lamar Valley now. That's the Lamar River again. That wolves were going to kill elk, and indeed they did. But consider the following: elk like to graze at the sides of the rivers. By so doing, they used to eat, and they still do eat, a lot of the plants that you find growing next to rivers. When the elk population was reduced by the reintroduction of wolves, there became more vegetation on the sides of the rivers, and this gave beavers more opportunity to construct beaver dams. Because there were more beaver dams, there were more places for trout to breed. So the fish population in Yellowstone also increased. What scientists have found, though, was that although the wolves would kill elk, and there's a lot of cars pulled over here, I wonder if there's been a bear sighting or if this is just somewhere people have stopped to walk down to the river. There's a very nice rapid on the river. Oh, they're looking at birds across the way. was telling you that grizzly bears have taken over. I was about to tell you. Wolves kill elk and then get chased off the kill by grizzly bears. So the wolves have provided a very important resource for grizzly bears to eat, because the grizzly bears are now eating the elk kills. The wolf kills of the elk. In addition, aggression of the wolves towards coyotes inside wolf territories has possibly also benefited other smaller predators, rodents and birds of prey. The problem is that elk hunting, and you can't hunt elk inside Yellowstone, but elk hunting, particularly in the state of Wyoming, is a multi-million-dollar business. And with the wolves killing as many elk as they have, it's understandable that ranchers and politicians, farmers, sportsmen, hunters in Wyoming and Montana are not exactly thrilled at the reintroduction of wolves. Coming up on our right is Slough Creek. I mentioned Slough Creek before in the context of fishing. It has, as I mentioned before, some of the best fishing in the spring anywhere in the world. And then in addition, up over there, we obviously can't see the exact location, but there are wolves' dens up there. And over the years, people get to know where they are, and they sit and wait in the spring with their cameras with telephoto lenses, hoping to catch pictures of the wolves with the newborn pups coming out of the dens. And that is one of the most popular places in all of Yellowstone to go and watch wolves and to get wolf pictures. And we're crossing over the Lamar River again. If you look at your map again, you'll notice that this road from the northeast entrance runs into the Grand Loop Road at Tower-Roosevelt or Tower Junction. And in normal years, we would turn right to head up towards Mammoth Hot Springs, or left to go down towards Tower Falls and then up over Dunraven Pass. But this year and next year, in fact until 2022, the road over Dunraven Pass is unfortunately closed. So one has to take a long way around to get back to West Yellowstone, or to get down to the south portion of the park, or to go to the east entrance. It's a long drive around these days. To the wolves, it's also not unusual to see bears, particularly grizzly bears, in this part of the park. And people also come here at dawn and at dusk, hoping to see grizzlies in the spring with their cubs. Last year I got some great pictures in an area just ahead of us of a grizzly that had just killed an elk. I didn't see the kill, but the grizzly was feeding on the elk and had two small cubs with her. I didn't have a tripod with me, so the pictures are a little shaky. Running into small buffalo. The pictures are a little shaky, but I'll drop some of them in. considering that these are buffalo and not a grizzly bear or a black bear or a wolf, there sure are a lot of people out there, aren't there? Interestingly enough, the largest killer of wolves is actually other wolves. They're pretty ruthless in preying on each other. And then, I believe the second biggest killer of wolves is disease, as opposed to man killing them. Hantavirus, amongst other things, kills a lot of wolves. I believe the wolf population at the moment in Yellowstone is in the high 90s, which is a lot lower than it was in the early years after wolves were first reintroduced here. I believe that there used to be about 200. Seen any today, but amongst the other animals that I often see here and expect to see in this part of Yellowstone are pronghorn, which is the fastest animal in North America. It evolved to be as fast as it is to be able to outrun an ancient type of cheetah which used to be found in North America millennia ago. These are the buffalo that I was referring to earlier when I told you I saw a lot of them on the way in. If you come to Yellowstone and you go all over the park and you do not see buffalo, trust me, that's a sign that the apocalypse is upon us. It's hard to imagine coming here and not seeing buffalo. I've seen grizzly bears in this area over here so often that whenever I see cars parked like this and people out on the roads, I automatically think, yes, grizzly. But unfortunately, that's not the case today. We're coming up to the Yellowstone picnic area on our left. It's not one of my favorite picnic areas in the park, I think that in order to have a great picnic area, you've got to have a river. There's got to be the sound of water and the view of that water rushing past. And the scenery has to be pretty, and there has to be one of those rustic sort of toilets that you find in the national parks. My favorite picnic area in all of Yellowstone at the moment is probably the Snake River picnic area, which is to be found just to the north of Yellowstone's south entrance. You'll see it shortly after you drive in on the right-hand side or the east side of the road. It's really stunning. You've got the water, you've got the restroom, and you've got other beautiful scenery, lush valleys in the foreground, opening up into mountains in the background. We're dropping down towards the Yellowstone River now, and with all the slow-moving traffic, this tour has taken a little longer than I had anticipated. So we're crossing over the Yellowstone River. There are bighorn sheep to be found in that area over there. There's a trail that you can take, and it'll bring you out to an area overlooking some cliffs, and it's not unusual to see bighorn sheep there as well. I know I was talking about bighorn sheep earlier, and then I got sidetracked. I was telling you how bighorn sheep are found in Yellowstone's northern range, and they're generally in very inaccessible, very inhospitable areas to stay away from predators. Unfortunately, bighorn sheep are very susceptible to disease, and they die off very readily, which means that the population at any given time is really low. And the problem with disease affects them even more if they come into contact with domestic sheep, because they don't have the same natural ability to protect themselves against disease as domestic sheep do. That up there is the road to Mammoth. That over there is the road down to Tower Falls, which we can't take at the moment. Unfortunately, I've come to the end of another one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoy our virtual Yellowstone tours, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Otherwise, see you in Yellowstone.